Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to the preview for the 2022 Monaco Grand Prix. Yes, we are back in Monaco once again. And this is a weird one for me because every single year I go into this race weekend knowing there is probably going to be very little in the way of wheel-to-wheel action overtaking and it'll highly likely be a bit processional on Sunday. However, I still get really excited because for all the criticism it gets, it is still Monaco. Basically, if you're coming into this weekend expecting a ton of overtaking, a load of action and the most thrilling race of the year, then you're probably going to be disappointed. But if you're watching to see driver and car as one, pushing the limits in between the walls, right up against the barriers and risking everything for that extra tenth of a second, knowing a mistake will be punished massively, then you're going to have a much better time watching, especially on Saturday, the most important qualifying session of the year. Enough of all that waffle though, let's kick things off with a look at the track and all the stats that usually follow. So last time out F1 was at the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya for the Spanish Grand Prix, a surprisingly good Spanish Grand Prix, but now it's on to Monaco for a race around the famous streets and round 7 of this championship season already. A lap of those famous streets is 3.337 kilometres long, that is just over 2 miles if you prefer, and has a total of 19 corners, and come Sunday, we should, all being well, see a total of 78 racing laps. Just the one DRS zone this weekend, as usual, and that runs down the start-finish not straight, and the race lap record is a 1:12.909, and that was set by Lewis Hamilton last year on his way to P7. The race, of course, was won by Max Verstappen, who led home Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris. What could have been for Charles Leclerc last year, eh? Oh, can he break his Monaco jinx? We'll find out, of course. When it comes to overtaking, there likely won't be much, if any, if I'm being honest. I suppose Turn 1 is the best spot thanks to that DRS zone, although it doesn't tend to make too much of a difference. And hopefully we will see some heroics into Saint Devote at the start. We do sometimes see moves started up the hill before the director cuts away to show you a replay of Lance Stroll. And the chicane after the tunnel, the Nouvelle chicane if you will, is also a good spot. But really this one is all about strategy. And on that note, I've actually got something super exciting and super amazing for you this week to go over. Take a deep breath, everyone. This could get crazy. It's tyre talk time. The compounds available for this weekend are the softest in the Pirelli range, which is usually the case at Monaco to be fair, and they are the hard C3, the medium C4 and the soft C5. Degradation is incredibly low at Monaco, so that's not really a concern and very little stress gets put through these tyres. It is pretty much all about traction, so looking after the rears will be important. That said though, when it comes to strategy, it's all very simple. Track position at Monaco is absolutely everything, and so it's vital to make as few stops as possible to avoid getting stuck in traffic. It is a short pit lane with a lost time of around 20 seconds, but that doesn't point to us seeing multiple stops. And according to Aston Martin, the expectation is that drivers will pit early to try and make up track position and then manage their tyres to the end of the race. Safety cars can be a feature, perhaps unsurprisingly, and historically we've seen at least one safety car at 80% of races around Monaco. The big variable this weekend, though, isn't just the risk of a safety car, it's actually the weather, and yes, at time of recording at least, rain is a possibility for the race. Friday is set to stay dry though, with highs of 27 degrees for the opening 2 practice sessions, and it's actually a very similar story for Saturday, with temperatures forecast to hit a high of 27 degrees for qualifying. But on Sunday, it is set to be a little bit cooler at 22 degrees for the start of the race, and there is, as things stand, a good chance of rain. But as always with these things, how likely that rain is depends on where you get your forecast from. The lowest I found is a 20% chance, so not very likely, and the highest is an 80% chance, so very likely, and the F1 website lists it at 60%, so could go either way. But I think it's fair to say that rain is likely to be hovering around at the very least, but as always, that is how things stand as I record this, and there's still plenty of time for that to change. And your schedule for this one is very much the same as Spain, but a tad different to what we historically see at Monaco. As I'm sure many of you will know, the first 2 practice sessions used to be held on a Thursday. Friday was then a day off, and then the weekend would continue as normal from Saturday morning, but not anymore. FP1 will kick the weekend off on Friday, not Thursday, Friday from 1 p.m. BST, and FP2 follows later that same day from 4 p.m. The third practice session is on Saturday at 12 midday with qualifying underway from 3 p.m. And it is lights out for the race on Sunday at 2 p.m. and once again that is in UK time. Now, before we move on, I'd just like to say a massive thank you to NordVPN for once again sponsoring this week's preview. So NordVPN is a great way to watch shows and sports from all over the world. I've been watching a few bits on US Netflix this week, and that's without even having to leave the comfort of my own home, which is absolutely fine by me. Simply connect to one of NordVPN's more than 5,400 servers in 60 different countries to be able to browse the internet freely and securely. And as well as all the things like streaming benefits, NordVPN also helps to keep you and your information safe online, thanks to features including double VPN for double encryption and automatic kill switch, next generation tunneling solution NordLynx, and threat protection, which can help protect you against malicious websites, malware trackers, and more. And that threat protection can even be activated with just one click. And once again, F1 Word viewers can absolutely grab an exclusive NordVPN deal by clicking the link in the video description or by heading to nordvpn.com/F1Word, where you will be able to get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan plus free threat protection and one additional month for free. And that is all completely risk-free thanks to Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. So give it a go. I was skeptical about VPNs at first, but I don't think I'd ever go back if I'm being completely honest. I love watching Netflix, what can I say? But let's get back to the preview and the talking points and news ahead of this weekend's Monaco Grand Prix. First up then, Christian Horner has warned that some teams could have to miss races later in the season if the budget cap is not adjusted to account for the spiralling levels of inflation and rising freight costs. That was a mouthful. The Red Bull boss claims that unless the FIA takes action, up to 7 teams may have to miss the final 4 races of 2022 to stay within that cap. He added that it's not just about the big teams, it is also teams in the midfield that are struggling. However, despite his warning, not all teams are on board with a budget increase, with Otmar Safnauer saying that his team oppose any boost to the cap, and that if teams risk missing races, they should scale back their development budget to keep within budget. He explained, and this is a quote by the way, when freight costs go up by $2.5 to $3.5 million, but your development budget is $20 million, can you not just make your development budget $17 million and still be under the cap? Adding that is, of course, absolutely possible, but it would obviously limit development, and in a development race that could be costly, so it is easier for the teams to lobby the FIA for more money. It is reported that Alpine is not alone and there are a number of teams opposing any increase to the cap, but Ross Brawn has said that a solution to all of this is at hand and the increased inflation needs to be reviewed because the financial regulations were initially set when global inflation was low and relatively predictable. Meanwhile, Ferrari boss Matteo Binotto has played down Mercedes' Spanish Grand Prix revival, saying the team is still behind on pace. Speaking to Sky Sports F1 after the race, he said that whilst the Silver Arrows had clearly recovered and improved the speed of the W13, they were still 7/10 off in qualifying come the end of the race. George Russell was 32 seconds behind race winner Verstappen, which Binotto says could have been nearer 40 seconds had Leclerc not retired. And then with a little bit of maths, he explained that 40 seconds across a 66-lap race is still a significant 6 or 7/10 of a second per lap off the pace, likening it to where Ferrari was last season. Despite all of that, though, Christian Horner warns that Mercedes should not be written off this year, using how Max Verstappen went from 46 points behind Charles Leclerc after Australia to lead by 6 points just 3 races later, to explain just how quickly things can change. And there are still plenty of races and plenty of points available for the Silver Arrows to claw their way back into contention. And Toto Wolff seems to back that point up by describing the W13 as looking like, quote, a world championship winning race car at the hands of Lewis Hamilton as he made his way back through the field in Spain. Although, word of caution, he has since said that given their problems with tyre warm-up and how last year went at Monaco, his expectations for this weekend are again, quote, lower than on any other circuit. And finally for this part and in lighter news, or you might say light year news, that was absolutely dreadful. Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz are voicing a character in the new Disney Pixar film Lightyear. Look, it's news you all clearly need to know, okay? Leclerc and Sainz will be voicing the same character in the Italian and Spanish language versions of the films respectively, although we don't yet know which character that will be, but we'll find out when it releases in cinemas next month. On Wednesday, Ferrari shared some photos of their drivers in the studio, voice acting something Leclerc felt was much harder than he expected, by the way, but it was a great experience for him. And this, of course, won't be the first time F1 drivers have lent their voices to animated characters, with Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel both featuring in the Cars franchise, and Fernando Alonso, Jacques Villeneuve and Vitaly Petrov have also featured in the Cars movies. And that's just some of them, by the way. I went through a list today, and wow, do F1 drivers love a little bit of voice acting. But anyway, before I get on to my predictions, it's time to take a look back at a classic Monaco Grand Prix, and this was a tough one. With rain a possibility, I wanted to pick a wet race like Senna's incredible drive to P2 for Tolman in 1984, or the race in 1996 where officially only 3 cars were classified and Olivier Panis took the victory. But when I think about rain at Monaco, one race always comes to mind. So let's flash back to Michael Schumacher's dominant drive to victory at the 1997 Monaco Grand Prix. Following a dry Sunday morning warm-up session, rain began to fall prior to the start of the race, and Schumacher chose late on to switch to a wet setup as more rain looked likely to fall, a move that would prove to be an inspired one. Heinz-Harald Frentzen would line up on pole for Williams on slick tyres, and his teammate Jacques Villeneuve did the same from P3. Both drivers struggled off the line for grip, allowing Schumacher to breeze past on the run to turn 1, followed by Giancarlo Fisichella. And at the end of lap 1, the Ferrari was a whopping 6.6 seconds clear of the Jordan in second place. And by the end of lap 5, he was an incredible 22 seconds up the road. Okay, he was in a superior car, but what a drive. And aside from a moment at Saint-Devote where he went straight on, spun round and rejoined without losing a place, he was pretty much faultless. Both McLarens retired early on as David Coulthard spun on the run to the Nouvelle chicane, and Mika Hakkinen, trying to avoid the incident, collided with the back of a Benetton. The Williams drivers did eventually pit for wet weather tyres, shock horror, but both retired later on following contact with the barriers. I think, long story short, it was a chaotic Grand Prix, one where only 10 drivers were classified come the checkered flag. Of course, Rubens Barrichello drove superbly well in those conditions to take second place in only Stewart's 5th Grand Prix, with the second Ferrari of Eddie Irvine taking the final step on the podium. And Mika Salo needs a shout out as well for bringing his Tyrrell home in 5th place with front wing damage and without making a single pit stop. Right then, time for my Monaco predictions, and as always, don't take these too seriously, they are just a little bit of fun, and if you do disagree with my picks, then you can let me know yours in the comment section down below. And based on last week's predictions, you absolutely should be disagreeing with my picks. Wrong on all but the podium outsiders and how many cars finished the race, the predictions that really matter. As already touched on, this weekend is pretty much all about qualifying. The driver who grabs pole on Saturday, assuming they get off the line well, or, actually make it to the grid, they'll be able to control the race pace and they'll be the big favourites for the win. Obviously, if that rain does come, it may not be as straightforward as that, but that tends to be the way it goes. I'm actually using some data from the Spanish Grand Prix courtesy of motorsport.com for this week's predictions. To keep it short, Sector 3 in Spain has often been seen as a good indicator to work out who will be quick in Monaco. Fastest through there, in theory, is expected to do well around the famous streets. So with that in mind, I'm going with a Leclerc pole as Ferrari were just, and I mean only just, quicker than Red Bull through that sector in qualifying last Saturday. I am fully expecting a processional race, so I'll say he converts that into victory and is followed home closely by Max Verstappen, who I'll even go as far as to say splits the Ferraris on the grid, and I'll go with... I was going to say Carlos Sainz, but I need to stop predicting good things for him because it never really goes well, does it? So I'll go with Sergio Perez instead for that reason partly, but also because he is on a bit of a roll at the moment. He's made it to the podium at 3 of the last 4 races and wasn't exactly all that far off in Miami where he finished 4th. Behind the leaders, I'm going somewhat bold with my podium outsiders, but again, based on that Spain Sector 3 data. And so I think if there is a little bit of drama between the top 2 teams, then Alfa Romeo will snatch a podium. They were actually the 3rd fastest team overall through that sector in qualifying last week. In fact, the GPS traces show the Alfa Romeo was fastest on the entry to turn 12, as well as the exit of the chicane and into the final corner. And that all points to them having some very good traction at low speed. And I will say very quickly that yes, this data is something to go off, but no, it isn't a given. It is just really a theory that sometimes plays out and sometimes doesn't. But I just figured it would make my predictions a bit more interesting this week rather than just making a bunch of total guesses. On that note, my bolder predictions are for Yuki Tsunoda to pick up a top 7 finish on Sunday. I'll say Zhou Guanyu makes it into Q3 and Daniel Ricciardo out-qualifies Lando Norris for the 2nd weekend in a row. Now, okay, the race might be a bit processional on Sunday, even if it rains, but as I said at the start, I'm still looking forward to this one, mainly because of the action on Saturday, because that, for me, is when Monaco really comes alive, and who knows, maybe, just maybe, the race will end up being a cracker. We are long overdue one in Monaco. That is it, though, for the Monaco Grand Prix preview, but don't forget you can let me know your thoughts and your predictions ahead of the weekend in the comment section down below. Now, I will be back live on Sunday shortly after the race for the usual reaction stream. In the meantime, though, if you did enjoy this one, then please do leave a like as it really does help out the channel. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.